All right, brother. How you doing?
Hey, Troy, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Good. Well, are you having me on? It doesn't matter, right? Yeah, so I went to the dentist today. I know everybody's just thrilled to hear about this right now. I got my bottom teeth deep cleaned, and they're going to do the upper ones tomorrow, and then I'm going to get teeth. Like before Christmas, I'm getting my two front teeth before Christmas.
An early Christmas present.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, so we had a conversation the other day on the phone um, about Jerusalem, Israel. I did a video yesterday on Armageddon and Gog and Magog. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot, you've been there how many times?
I've only been to Israel a couple of times, but I've been to some of the sites multiple times on those trips and have done a fair amount of study about them.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I have a question. What we were talking about the second temple. Let's just start there. No, I'm sorry. This will be the third temple, not the second. Right. Well, you went, yeah. What do you mean? Like, is there some like wiggle room there or something?
Yeah, there's some wiggle room there. So we have Solomon's temple. So Solomon, the son of David. David wasn't allowed to build the temple, but he did purchase the temple site, the threshing floor from Onan the Jebusite, and he purchased that threshing floor. and because he was a warrior king, I guess, and had some issues, he was not allowed to build the temple, but his son Solomon was. So that was the first temple. Now, prior to that, we had the tabernacle. In fact, we're reading about that right now in Come Follow Me. Mm-hmm. It was a tabernacle, but they'd put doors and whatnot on it, and it housed the Ark of the Covenant and the other, the menorah and the other things. And it was in a town called Shiloh. So, and it was there for 369 years.
Wow.
So no short time period. So
why didn't they build a temple in 369 years?
It's an amazing story. So this is where we have Hannah. She's the one that had Samuel, prayed for Samuel and said, if you give me a child, I will dedicate him to the Lord, right? That all happened in Shiloh. And Shiloh is about, just so we get a map in our head, it's probably 25 miles north of Jerusalem. In what would be Samaria, I guess. So it's definitely West Bank.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So you're not going to have the tour buses going there. But there's definitely an archaeological site. It's been identified, and they know where the tabernacle was.
Is that in the valley of Megiddo, or
no.
Is that more west of the valley?
It would be south of the valley.
South of the valley, I mean.
Okay. Yeah, south and a little east, actually, because Megiddo or Jezreel or Armageddon, those are all synonymous of the valley, which is north of that. And
okay, so now was this right before? Okay, so 365 years, is that what you said?
369 years, the tabernacle was housed in Shiloh.
In Shiloh. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that was prior to the second erection of the temple?
The first. It was prior to the first.
Okay, with what was his name?
Solomon.
Yeah, Solomon. But okay, so Cyrus was the, sorry, go ahead.
No, you got it. So I have issues with going all over the place, but I just wanted to mention that tabernacle being in one place for 369 years is a type of a temple, even though it was called the tabernacle. But then what we call the first temple would be Solomon in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount. Now, there is some debate Some people say that it could be the city of David. There's some other sites too, and we can get into this later, why I'm pretty confident it's on the Temple Mount.
I am too. Yeah, well, I mean, confident enough. It's interesting how the city of David, they call it the city of David, but it's just really like a little territory, isn't it? It's not so very far from the Temple Mount.
Exactly right. There's a modern day, so you have the walled city of Jerusalem, and on the south end of that walled city of Jerusalem, and from the Temple Mount, it's just south of that is what they say is the city of David, and it's literally just across the street. There's a road there now, and it's just across the street. I wouldn't say it's a stone's throw away, but it's very, very close. And it's kind of on a ridge line, and there's some amazing archaeological current digs going on there, and there's a lot of wonderful things.
I know one of the reasons that some people speculate it could have been in the city of David is because of the revelation, or the scriptures that talk about water flowing.
Yeah.
And they said that there's a river there, or a stream.
Well, you have the Gihon Springs that's actually below the city of David, the Gihon Spring. And that's there's a lot of water there. And if you've ever heard of Hezekiah's Tunnel, you can go in the Bible dictionary of our Latter-day Saint Bibles, and there's a whole description of Hezekiah's Tunnel. That took the water from the Gihon Spring. They built a tunnel to go from outside of the walled city of Jerusalem into Jerusalem. So they had a water source anticipating the siege of King Nebuchadnezzar, which did happen. And that's an amazing, I've been in that tunnel twice. It's incredible. And the water of the Gihon Spring is still flowing through.
Right, yeah.
Through there. But just to backtrack a little bit, so we have King Solomon building the temple. It gets destroyed by the Babylonians, by King Nebuchadnezzar. And then oh boy. Well, King Cyrus,
Persia?
Persia, thank you.
Yes.
They overtake,
or Syria. Wait, no.
It was Persia. Not the Assyrians. That happened 100 years.
That's right.
Before.
I'm sorry. I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they overtake the Babylonians, and King Cyrus has all these people that were basically kidnapped. You know, we had Daniel, we had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We had all these Israelites that were taken into Babylon, but there were many others. And King Cyrus of Persia says, you know what? I think you people need to go back to your homeland and rebuild your temple, and I will help you do that financially and otherwise. So that's what we call the building of the second temple. But here's where it gets a little sketchy, is that temple was pretty small. And King Herod, Christ's time, just prior to Christ, he built this huge Temple Mount, and actually built another temple over the existing temple, because he didn't want to disrupt the temple that was already there, but he wanted to expand the temple as well as the Temple Mount. So some folks say that was the third temple, right? So that's where it gets a little confusing, but we'll just call it the second temple, because it was an addition to the one that King Cyrus
was already, because it wasn't completely destroyed.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Or I know what you're saying. They added on they renovated it.
They renovated, but it was the renovation was
huge.
Was way bigger than the existing one.
Right.
It's like having a 1-bedroom little house and adding 10 bedrooms to it.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so King Herod, we know that he was not a Roman. He was actually a Jew. he was of Jerusalem, right? Or was he king of Israel? No, it was Jerusalem, right?
Jerusalem.
Okay. Why? Here's my question. I have another question. Why the Temple Mount? I mean, does that where the Lord wanted it? Because King Herod was wicked. If he was the one that decided that's where it should go, is there revelation and scripture that talks about where it should be?
In my opinion, yes. So
okay.
So you have King David purchasing the threshing floor. You do have record of the temple artifacts being held in the city of David. And once the temple was built by Solomon, they took the artifacts, and the Ark of the Covenant being one of them, and it says they took them up from the city of David.
Like that.
Yes, right? They went up. And here's the cool thing, just to tie in more to the modern thing, as they have been excavating the city of David underneath a parking lot, they have found the pilgrimage path, the stairs, that basically steps that went from the city of David, from the Gihon Spring, all the way up to the south entrance of the Temple Mount. And they have found temple coins. So when we're talking about the money changers, this is the path of where the money changers were, all the way up into the court of the Gentiles. You had the women's court, you had all these courts that were up on the Temple Mount, but they're finding temple coins. So when they're talking money changers, that was you had to pay to worship or to get into the temple grounds.
Yeah.
And so you'd take doves, you'd take goats or sheep or whatever, and then you'd exchange them for a temple coin. They've actually found those temple coins on that pilgrimage path from the city of David up to the Temple Mount. Now, just a couple of little arguments for the city of David. They have the Fortress Antonio, and the modern day Fortress of Antonio sits on the Temple Mount now, and it's just this little tower kind of thing. And they said there's no way there could be a legions of Roman soldiers in the Antonio Fortress. So they're saying, it has to be that whole mount that held the legion. And so that's one of their arguments. And the other one, like what you said, was the water, because the ritual baths, and you discussed this on one of your previous videos about them finding basically a baptismal font by the Western Wall, wasn't it? By the Western Wall.
Yes.
Yeah. They were putting an elevator shaft for handicap.
Well, they're calling it a ritual bath.
Yeah.
Like ceremonial bath.
Mitzvah.
A mitzvah. Yeah.
A mitzvah. Which I've been down to Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, and which down by the Dead Sea. I've been there. I've been through the community that they've uncovered, and there's baptismal or ritual baths all through it. It was part of their culture. It was part of their religion, and we think of it as a one-time. Well, unless you're doing it for somebody who's dead, but we think of it as a covenant event that typically happens once for you as an individual, and you go. With the Jews, it was consistent every time that you would go to the temple. And on the south end,
not only were you physically cleansing yourself, you were also spiritually and ritualistically, symbolically cleansing, almost like a washing and anointing.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Exactly.
Could they also have been practicing proxy baptisms too?
Well,
we're not for sure, right?
We're not for sure. We have the one in 1 Corinthians 15, else what shall they do which are baptized for the dead? If the dead rise not at all, why are they then baptized for the dead. We have that scripture, and that's Paul speaking to the people of Corinth.
But that might have not been a doctrine until Christ came, right?
That's a possibility, because it's definitely an after Christ and turning it over to the apostles. That's where we have the evidence of it, but it certainly could have been. We just don't know. But the ritual baths are amazing. And on the south side of the Temple Mount, right as you go in the temple, they've uncovered dozens of these ritual baths, these mitzvahs, right at the base of the Temple Mount. And this is fairly new discovery, which many people now feel like that is where the day of Pentecost in Acts chapter 2, where that took place, because they were at the temple. There were 2,000 people. So we're not talking a small little baptismal font, right? This was thousands of people being baptized and the Holy Spirit coming. And a lot of people feel like, and I'm one of them, that it took place right there at the south end of the Temple Mount, kind of in between the city of David and the Temple Mount.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something about you know how YouTube is? So let me call it the D of the R. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The D of the R.
It's on the Temple Mount. Let's just call it the D of the R.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's
because
really
if I start
shiny.
saying it, they'll start swarming on us.
It's really shiny in color.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
All right. So that iconic place on the Temple Mount. Mm-hmm. I keep saying revelation. Are there scriptures does the Lord talk about that happening? Like something occupying to where being a stumbling block for the Jews, where they're not able to build their temple. You know that scripture that talks about leave so much space for the Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought maybe that's what it.
Maybe that's what it could be.
Yeah.
Well, I don't believe there is, and just to be careful. Even in the scriptures of that faith that has that structure, that's not even mentioned in there. This is a fairly recent religious site,
right?
But it stands to reason that there would be something like that, because that has always been the case, because the Jews rejected their God over and over again. They lost their places of worship and holiness. And this is what's so exciting about the third temple. And why many Christians are actually just as excited, if not more excited, than many of the Jews. But you have the Temple Institute, which the founder of the Temple Institute was one of the soldiers in the war of 1967, the 6-Day War. He was one of the soldiers that entered on the Temple Mount and said, "We have the Temple Mount." Wow. Yeah, and
now wasn't that 1967?
1967.
1967.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The 6-Day War, miraculous, just so many amazing things. But from that point on, there has been, individuals who can trace their lineage as true Levites, the priesthood, and so you have all this thing. Well, then from a Latter-day Saint perspective, you're like, well, we should be the ones building that temple, not the Jews. And there's this I see both sides of that argument as well. Bruce R. McConkie and Joseph Fielding Smith would take the side that this has to be built by the proper priesthood authority, and yeah, you know what I mean. And then I'm looking over some books I have. Wilford Woodruff was one that I should grab it and read the quotes, but I can. Wilford Woodruff said just the opposite. He said the Jews are going to rebuild their city and rebuild their temple.
Well, here's where it works together. I was thinking this: they're Levites. Levites don't have to be ordained to the Aaronic priesthood, do they?
No.
So it could be built by the Aaronic priesthood. It basically is. Isn't a Levite already just a shoe-in into the priesthood?
Yes. In fact, a bishop
that is of the tribe of Levi.
Yeah, or has to be adopted in to become a bishop, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's another train of thought too, and that's if King Cyrus, if Herod, wicked, crazy Herod, could be involved in building a temple, and then later Christ comes and said, "This is my Father's house." He called it his Father's house.
Right.
But yet it was built by, well, and then if you have Caiaphas, that was the priest of the temple, the high priest at the time of Christ, this guy was crazy wicked, right? But yet Christ recognized it as his Father's house. So the other line of thinking is whether they have the priesthood or not, Christ can sanctify that temple no matter what at his second coming.
Yeah, I mean,
so anybody can build it.
Well, look, we're spiritual tribes of Israel adopted in, and then you have the literal tribes of Israel, or the tribe of Judah. The Lord recognizes both of them as being important. He could do the same about temples. We have temples that are built by the priesthood in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but he also recognizes his chosen people will have an edifice and call it a temple, and he will recognize it because he's symbolically and temporally coming for both purposes. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and you said it very well. I love that. Now, in the Latter-day Saint culture, we sometimes think, well, perhaps the Jerusalem center could be that temple.
I've heard that, yeah.
But get this, if you really study Matthew 24 as well as Zechariah, I think it's 14, the Mount of Olives is going to be split in two. Well, if that's the case, the Jerusalem center doesn't stand much of a chance.
Right.
Because it's on the Mount of Olives. It's kind of on the north end of the Mount of Olives. But if that is split in two, we're talking some pretty interesting geological changes to that area. And then straight west of the Mount of Olives is the Temple Mount.
Well, wouldn't there also be scriptures that talk about the temple being on the Mount of Olives or something? I think there would have been something.
I think
alluding to that.
I do think so. Now, just a couple of other things that people who think that it should be in the city of David. It actually originated with two individuals. Martin was the first to come up with this idea that it was the city of David. And then I can't remember the newest version of Martin, but it stems from replacement theology. These guys were replacement theologists, and replacement theology are Christian individuals who believe that the Jews have lost it and that they've been replaced by Christians. And so God's people are the Christians, they're not the Jews anymore.
Okay.
That's where that comes from. So
they're definitely anti-Z.
Anti-Z.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're looking for a different place anyway than the Temple Mount. Because it's the Jews that want the Temple Mount. And if they're not the chosen people, then let's find another place where perhaps the temple was. So you got to know that in order, in my opinion, to kind of know where they're coming from. But they do have some valid points. One is water, and we know that they had a water source. Now, down towards Bethlehem, and when I say down, it's actually up, but on a map, it's south of Jerusalem, about 5 miles, Bethlehem is. And in the mountains of Bethlehem, there are the pools of Solomon. And they've actually uncovered the portions of the aqueduct that took water from the pools of Solomon, from the mountains of Bethlehem all the way to the Temple Mount. Pretty cool.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. So we know they had a water source, and regardless if you have the Gihon Springs, it's still below where the city of David is. So it that doesn't really work in my opinion, but that's one of their arguments. And then the last one I'll bring up on it is the Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall, it used to be called. Now,
where you see the Orthodox and the Hasidic Jews praying, and then they put their prayers in the. There's a lot of prayers in that wall, huh?
I've put probably a half a dozen prayers in that wall myself.
Wow.
A very cool experience.
It probably goes back to putting names on the temple roll or something. Who knows?
You're exactly right. And I loved that you said that. And as you approach the Temple Mount, or the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, it's segregated, men on the left side, women on the right side, as you're staring at the wall. Yeah. So the women are doing their thing on this side, and there's a like a curtain type thing in between them. And then on the men's side, under at way far left of the end of the Western Wall, there's a library of the you have the Torah with 5 books of Moses and whatnot, but then you have the Talmud, which is the Talmud is like it would be like all the conference. It'd be like the Journal of Discourses and conference talks explaining the Torah. And in that, I've been in that library with all the Orthodox Jewish individuals, studying, and they get into a rhythm of I asked one, I said, why do you do that? And he said, there's a rhythm to the Word of God, and it helps to get your body into that rhythm to understand it. And I'm like, it makes sense to me. I have no issue with it,
They've been doing that since they were young.
Since very young.
Repetitiously, and they just, it consumes them. It becomes a part of them.
Yeah. So one of the parts with the Western Wall that the city of David folks who think the temple was there is they say that if you go to Matthew 24, Christ says that there will not be one stone left upon another.
Right.
But he's talking, if you read it carefully, he's talking specifically of the buildings.
That was one of my questions. So why is there still the Western Wall there?
So the Western Wall is just the wall of the Temple Mount. And they're Herodian stones, meeting at the time of Herod. So this was built, these stones, it's an amazing thing. So it was just to increase the platform of where the temple sat on top of.
Okay.
So the wall is significant to the Jews.
So it wasn't really part of the temple.
No part of the temple.
Okay.
So the Jews and the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, because even Jerusalem is split up in, you have the Armenian, you have the Christian, you have the Jewish section, and then you have the Muslim section. I've stayed in the Muslim section. It's fine, but that Western Wall was the closest that the Jews could get to where the temple sat on top of the Temple Mount. That's why the wall they know it's not the temple or any portion of the temple. So how did we get on this?
How did we get on what?
Anyway.
On what? Tell me.
I'm just wondering how this is awesome, but
it's beautiful. And I'm totally on your side about the Temple Mount.
Yeah, there's so much evidence.
Now,
can I do a free advertising of
absolutely
of a book?
Absolutely.
Now, this isn't my book, but this is a book that I have thoroughly enjoyed. And this guy's theory is amazing. And I've actually seen what he's talking about. So if
I'm going to order one.
Yeah, it's called The Temple Revealed.
Okay.
And I'll just hold it up there again.
When you said how'd we get on the subject? I thought that's what we started with.
I know.
What did we start with?
Well, we were going to talk about Armageddon and that too.
Oh, it's all part of it.
Okay,
but
good.
Let me ask you this. Oh, what's the name of the book again?
Okay, it's called The Temple Revealed. And it's by Christian Widener, and it's Widener. Christian Widener. And I really like what okay, so the other problem with the Temple Mount being the site of the temple is that it had to be a threshing floor, because that is, we know, well, here's a couple of things else.
A threshing for wheat?
For wheat.
Okay.
Other grains, but mainly wheat. And
okay.
You'd put the stalks down there with the wheat, and you would go over it with animals and whatnot, and you would get you would thresh it so you get the kernel out of the chaff, right? Separate the wheat from the chaff. A lot of parables about that. Well, the stone, and it would be bedrock, would have to be smooth, because they've been worn down over time. Okay. So they say that underneath that, the D of the R,
yes,
inside the D of R, the stone is very rough that's in there. There's no way it could be the threshing floor, and that I agree with. So this is so cool. If you go straight east to the Mount of Olives and look at the Temple Mount, you will see the Golden Gate, the eastern gate of the Temple Mount. And that eastern gate has been walled off, and a certain religion has a lot of their burial places right in front of that, because they want to prevent the Messiah from entering in those gates as prophesied, by having their dead people there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, pretty fascinating.
So is the Savior going to cause a scene, maybe?
That's where he's going to go through. Now, this is what's so interesting. The D of the R is offset from where that gate is. But what's right behind those gates on the Temple Mount is an exposed portion of the bedrock of Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. And it has a little shed type thing over it, just signifying that this is bedrock, and it's smooth as smooth. And the idea is, and it's just to the north of the D of the R.
Okay.
Just like right next door. So you could literally have the two brothers reunited on the Temple Mount with one staying there and then the other being built right next to it, and actually on the site. And that's what the theory is of this book.
The brothers meaning Jacob and Esau?
No,
or
it would be Ishmael and Isaac.
Why do I get that mixed up?
It's easy to get it mixed up because they do intermarry later on. But did was he still part of the 12 tribes of Israel? I can't remember. Well, Ishmael and Jacob were brothers. So Jacob's name's changed to Israel.
You mean is Esau and Jacob?
Esau. Yeah, not
right.
Ishmael. Sorry. Yeah.
But it's Ishmael and
Isaac.
Isaac. Okay.
Ishmael and Isaac, those would be the two brothers. Boom.
Right. Isaac had Abraham. Abraham had Jacob. Yeah.
Abraham had.
Abraham had Isaac.
Isaac and Ishmael.
Right.
Okay.
And then Isaac had Jacob and Esau. Yeah.
And the blessing of Abraham came from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob.
Okay. Right. So That's right.
But
I remember now.
But Abraham blessed all of his children. So
yeah,
we have to acknowledge that. But it would be pretty cool to see this edifice and this edifice, and they're both in their proper places. But,
right.
And it would be the union of two brothers. Yeah, it's just a thought. But that idea of the temple being on the Temple Mount, but being where that bedrock is, would totally fit. And therefore there would be no dispute of having to take down that other structure.
And the smoothness means that there was threshing.
That there was threshing that took place there.
Right. Wow.
And it fits that it would be up there, because in addition to the actual threshing, you needed a wind to blow the chaff away. And on a ridge line is where you would have that, on a mountaintop. Wow. Yeah. It's so cool.
This is amazing.
And it's also where Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac. Wow. It's the same spot.
Now, how do they know that? It's just recorded?
You can read the account, and they took him to the top of Mount Moriah. Abraham did, and he was told. So he came up from, I can't remember if he was in Hebron then. I think he was, and they traveled. So Hebron is south of Jerusalem, south of Bethlehem, maybe 20, 30 miles.
Mount Moriah. Okay, that's right.
And they went to Mount Moriah, and that's what we're talking about.
I need to read the Old Testament a lot more.
I'll tell you.
We're okay on Come Follow Me, our family, but there's still a lot more. Like, I forget things. I forget.
Well, I'll tell you, I could have read the Old Testament, but till I went there, I didn't understand it either. As well, I understood
your visual, your audio visual. So when you're getting these little things that represent, and you're getting a tour of it, and they're talking about this and that, you're building these scenarios in your head.
And instead of just reading words, I'm seeing people, places, areas. It makes all the difference. Did the same thing with Church History Tour. I'd read the Doctrine and Covenants and was like, oh, that's great. But then until I actually went to these sites, and but not everybody can do that. I totally get that. But you can get, what I suggest is that you always get maps out and take the time. Like, it's really easy to find Shiloh and just do a quick Google search. Where was the ancient city of Shiloh, where Hannah had Samuel, and where the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant, and they all got sick, and they gave, hey, you can have it back. This we don't like this thing that we took from you. That all took place in Shiloh, and it's only like 20, 30 miles north.
That is so cool.
Of Jerusalem, but it's such a significant place. So
people want to go all over the world, and they should go there.
Oh, yeah. So now, can we switch gears and talk about Megiddo?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How much time do we have?
Whatever you want to do. Okay,
so if you continue north and go a little bit to the west towards the Mediterranean, you're going to hit the Jezreel Valley. Megiddo is the town that's still there now, or it's been the Jezreel Valley, Megiddo, or Armageddon.
Gaza Strip, is that where the Gaza Strip?
No, that's way south.
Israelian?
Say that again.
The Israeli, what do they call it?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay.
But Gaza is way down. It's on the Mediterranean, but it's way south.
Okay.
Towards Egypt. But in fact, we were really close there on a tour one time, and we were at a place called Bet Lehi, and an archaeological dig, and we actually there was gunfire and also small missiles going. We were like, wow, this is pretty exciting. Anyway, not super.
Well,
close,
can I ask you
close.
something? Why do, okay, so when they say Armageddon will primarily start, so Bruce R. McConkie said it'll start on the West Bank somewhere, but it'll actually, or did he say the Valley of Megiddo?
Well, the Valley of Megiddo and Armageddon are the same thing. And here's why that is such a
No, I know, but why is the West Bank far away? Is it far away from the Valley of Megiddo?
No, it's
the Gaza Strip and
the Gaza is different than the West Bank.
Okay.
It's different. Okay. It's like its own little animal down there.
Okay. And that has nothing to do with Armageddon. Okay.
No,
sorry.
No. It's good to know. So if we go north towards the Sea of Galilee from Jerusalem, I would say about 60 miles, 50 miles, you'll hit the Jezreel Valley. It's the most fertile valley in all of Israel. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful farmland. You can get up on Mount Carmel and look down on the Jezreel Valley. Mount Carmel is where Elijah slays the priests of Baal. It's the most incredible place to go and see, you know, and feel where all those things took place. Anyway, you're looking down at the Jezreel Valley, the Valley of Armageddon, and that valley is so beautiful and fertile, and that valley goes west right to the Mediterranean Sea. So if there's going to be a battle, and there's going to be,
it's definitely going to be there.
It's going to be there because there's
a lot of space.
There's a lot of space for navies and military and everything to come on land through the Mediterranean Sea and land, and then it's just a walk on basically just a huge valley that goes right into the heart of Israel.
Right.
Otherwise, there's mountain ranges and all that kind of stuff. So that's one reason why Armageddon would be strategically. Now, obviously, there's going to be air and all that, which is another interesting thing that just happened a couple of days ago. You have Damascus, which is in Syria. Now, I've been up a couple of times to the Golan Heights, which is the northern part of Israel, kind of the north eastern part of Israel, which President Trump recognized. It was kind of disputed. And there was actually a part where you could get right at the tip of Israel, and you can see the evidence of the 6-day war that took place there. The trenches are still there. In 1967, it's amazing. But I can look off on my left as I'm facing north, and I can see a town in Lebanon, right there. I can see this. I can see the buildings of Lebanon. I look on my right, and I see a town in Syria, and then just beyond that is Damascus. That's where Paul was on the road to Damascus, right? Well, if you look up the history of Damascus, it's always been a city. It's the oldest city that's ever existed. Continual city is Damascus.
Well, there's prophecies about it being annihilated, or
that's exactly right, in Isaiah.
And it's happening. It's happening now, isn't it? I mean,
well, Israel bombed it 2 days ago, bombed Syria, and bombed their commercial airport. They can't use it right now because the air strip's been damaged. And it's because Iran who hates Israel. They use Syria as a point, because Syria is so close to Israel, to bring in armaments. And they're actually using commercial airlines to do it. And Israel's not, they're being proactive. They're like, there's no way we're going to allow this to happen. And then you have the terrorist organization Hezbollah, who's mostly in, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's going to happen sooner or later. Let's have a prayer after this, that this will
please don't.
Please.
Anyway, you have this organization that's in Lebanon that gets the stuff from Syria. Okay, so I don't want to get political, but it's happening right now.
Right.
And it is
well,
a fact that
whether you're on that side or that side, it's prophecy. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
So if this escalates, that prophecy about Damascus could be fulfilled. And it's.
Now let me ask you though. So do you think that might what's happening there and what happened 2 days ago, could that trigger something bigger? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Because also in Syria are Russian troops. And
we learn about Rosh, right?
So then you get into Gog and Magog.
Yes. What is Gog? Gog is the leader, right?
Of
Magog, which is the countries to the north.
Countries to the north. And that's where
it's not just going to be Syria and Damascus and all the other ones.
No, but that's where it will come from. And then if you combine that coming from the West, the Mediterranean, it all ends up in Armageddon. That's where which is just north of Jerusalem, which would be a great spot to assemble.
Well, so, you know how, okay, let me speak in code for a minute. I'm sorry, audience.
I'm sorry that I just
no. We kind of have to do this, folks, because the folks that are over this are they're cracking down. They're cracking down a lot lately. So what I was gonna say is that what was I gonna say? It was about I always wonder, because there's scriptures that clarify that in the last days, all the nations of the earth will be fighting, but we don't know. Some might be pro-Israel and some might not. But as wicked as this place is right now, or who's in control, we could be fighting alongside somebody,
Well, and I'll be careful on, exactly, because as a former president acknowledged Jerusalem as the capital and moved the embassy there, and many other countries followed, that the current leader is trying to reverse that as we speak. Right. So that could have huge ramifications, huge.
Yeah.
So it's right now, we have to be so careful. But let's just say that there's an organization that is a collection of several countries. Very few are. This
is funny.
Are supportive of the Star of David. How's that?
You mean if you spelled it out, it would spell un?
Yeah. That's exactly right. Oh, right. This is so bad.
This is a puzzle. It's a puzzle, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Just solve the puzzle.
Well, I opened up a Rumble account and I have all my videos go to there, but I don't really advertise. I don't really do much with it, but I figure, you know what?
I need to talk to you later because I have a Rumble channel too. I haven't uploaded lately on it.
Yeah.
But I need to, you have it automatically go there?
Anything I do on this.
You need to teach me how to do, just tell me how to do that.
I'll get with you
later.
Okay. So that's the Middle Eastern studies for today. I'm not an expert. This is strictly.
We've been going an hour already.
Holy smokes! It's my favorite topic. I don't know if you can tell.
No, all of this is awesome. This is, I am very, very pleased with the information. You're amazing to talk to. I mean that.
Oh, you're kind. I feel the same about you. You've got the voice. You've got the.
I'm inquisitive. That's what it. And
you bring up things and you read things that I'm like, gosh, I never. Yeah, I love it. I love your program.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's do it again, maybe in a couple weeks or a month or whatever.
Sounds great.
Is there anything we left out? I'm going to actually be talking to Jared. Sooner or later. He wants to talk a little bit about the temple. Maybe he has a different take, but I don't think he does. I think he's pretty much on the same plane, but I want to talk to others about it. But we didn't get into the red heifer. I was going to ask you about that, but that's okay. We'll do that another time.
There's so much to do with the what we call the third temple, but basically I have pictures of me standing next to the menorah that's going into the third temple. I should send you that. It's in the Jewish quarter. It's worth millions, and it's in this bulletproof. It's huge. It's as big as a man. It's just ginormous.
Yeah.
And the
Temple Institute has that, right?
Yeah, that's what they've created. They have all the priestly clothing. They
went by the ark. That ark that has the engravings by the Romans. Right? And they're showing them carrying the menorah out. And they actually use that as a pattern to create it, I believe.
There's so many just fascinating, interesting things that are going on that in Israel, and many of the Orthodox Jews are looking forward to the Messiah as much as we are. They just don't know that he already came once.
Yeah.
Now there's some Messianic Jews,
and they're growing,
but they're not that concerned about a temple, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're into the whole package.
We're into the temple, the whole
everything,
package.
Because there's types and shadows that mean things. Yeah. All right, brother. Okay. Don't go away. Hold on. I'm gonna stop this.